Hi everyone. I just wanted to make a short video on just recommendations on maybe where to start with studying for the final. I know there's a lot of people worried that, it's a 17 chapters, there's a lot of content that we covered. And some people might be feeling overwhelmed of where even to start. So what I want to do is just give you a pretty solid place to start your studying. It doesn't really end here, but even if you just get through what I suggest in this video, you'll probably be in pretty good shape for the final. I do recommend going back and rereading sections of the book that don't feel too comfortable, or that you don't feel too comfortable with in terms of understanding. Remember, my recommendation on reading is to don't read it like a novel. You want to make sure you understand every sentence and what every sentence is saying. So that's my recommendation on reading the book. Definitely going over your notes and organizing things is going to be helpful. But there's two in particular places I want to recommend starting if you don't have a strategy or you feel lost. And both of these documents can be found on our ECLearn site, and that's why you see that I've started the video on our ECLearn site. Oh, that's not ours. Let me change that. That's 1102. We'll go to ours, right? So Chemistry for Health Professionals. So in our file folder, right, I've gone through and I've tried my best to just separate things. Everything on the top is anything not regarding the final, so like the syllabus and stuff. And I'm trying to condense everything that's on, would help study for the final in one folder. So I wish ECLearn let me organize things the way I want to, but it does it alphabetically no matter what. But places that I would start. The two that I'm going to talk about in particular are going to be the study guide that I sent out last night, and then a particular it's basically 17 different slide decks of practice problems. It sounds like a lot, kind of, it is a lot, but I'll explain that in a little bit and why I think it's a good place to start with problem solving. So why don't we start first with the exam study guide. I already have it open, so I'm going to switch to that. And we'll go through, we don't have to go through everything, but we'll go step by step through some stuff. Right, so there's the study guide. So a couple of things, right, to make sure you've at least read the emails that I sent out and how the exam is going to function, right? It'll be based into 3 different sections: multiple choice, short answer, and then 1 multi-part question. And I'll talk about that in a second. Roughly, the exam's broken down into about 50% Gen Chem, which is chapters 1 through 10, 25% Orgo, which is all of exam 2, which was chapters 11 through 14. And then biochemistry is the last quarter, so 15 through 17. It's going to be a 2-hour exam, and this is actually kind of convenient, I think. I mean, for taking a final. The final is at 5 to 7 p.m. So it actually gives you almost an entire other day to actually study for the exam. You don't want to overstudy, but it will give you a chance that if you run into anything, you can meet with me. If you send me an email, obviously if too many students meet, I might have to do something different, but you still have effectively most of Saturday too. So it is a little bit useful. I'll do it like I've done the other exams. Everyone will get the exam at the same time. I'll be on Zoom. I'll send you the link, and then I'll sit there for the whole entire 2 hours. You don't have to log on if you don't want. You can stay logged on the whole time. That works too. I mute my mic so I don't interrupt you, but I'll unmute it when I need to talk. I talked to the department, was it yesterday? All the days blur together, right? Yeah, it was yesterday. We had a department meeting. A lot of other professors are going open notes, and I'm going to join them. So this will be an open note exam. There'll be some exceptions, and they're listed on the next page. So you can read through this. Effectively, what's saying there's 17 multiple choice questions. I am going to guarantee you this. There's going to be 1 multiple choice question from each chapter. So we cover all our bases. It's going to be mostly on theory, maybe a little bit basic math, but it's nothing too complicated. Then we have short answer response or short response. There's 7 questions, and then we'll have a multi-part question, right? To remind you what that kind of looks like, I've pulled up exam 2. Make sure I can find that. There we go. Right, to remind you the difference between short answer versus that multi-part question. So if we're looking at exam 2, right, this short answer, for part 1, right? Just naming ionic compounds. I think that's what, chapter 6. And then we're talking about balancing chemical reactions, and then we do a little bit of grams to moles, moles to grams type thing. That's all chapter 7. We get to here, making solutions. That's chapter 9, right? This one I think is either chapter 7 or 8. No, chapter 7 or 9, one of the two, or maybe it's a combination of them both. But generally, one topic, do this, right? That's how the short answers will be structured. It'll be one idea. Maybe there's multiple parts to the idea, like here, A, B, and C, right? Or up here where there's A and B, but it'll be based on one chapter, and try not to deviate. You know, I might deviate a little bit, mostly one chapter, right? So the math involved, right, might involve a couple of steps rather than simple math, right? You might need to use in particular equations. So keep in mind that. Multi-part questions, right? There's still technically short answer, and usually some of them are actually shorter in terms of what they're asking for. The difference is that the majority of the information I'm going to give you will be on like one topic. So when we did our exam, it was on the heartburn medication omeprazole. And I gave you all, extra information. You don't need to know it's a proton pump, inhibitor, right? But you need to pull out information in paragraph form to use it, right? So that's how I'll present most of the data. And then when you go through, the different questions are going to pull from different chapters. So it's not just going to be one type of chapter. I'm going to try to pull as many as I can. So for example, here, calculating the molar mass, well, that's chapter 7, I believe. Right here, we're doing this is also chapter 7. We're in chapter 9 right now, chapter 10, chapter 10, chapter 10, right? So it's a mixture of chapters. And so I'm going to make them, roughly, it'll be on one topic, but the exam is designed to be done in 2 hours. So it'll be a little bit longer than the other exams. All right, so that's kind of going over the structure. So why don't we get back to what I was talking about in terms of, preparing how to study, right? One thing I would recommend, because it is open notes, is getting your stuff organized and together. And that's why I want you guys to read this. I have had it happen with my seniors when I had them do open note quizzes. You will not have enough time, I guarantee you, to look at your notes for every question. You should be going into this exam hoping you don't need your notes, so you can effectively get done the questions you're comfortable with. And then if you get totally stuck, that's when you should be going to your notes. And having your notes, in organized piles or however you want to organize it is going to be helpful, right? I'll give you a periodic table. I'm going to finish putting together the equation sheet tonight and send that out to you so you know exactly what equations you have. You're allowed to use your own notes and then any handouts that I've given you. So it could be polyatomic ion chart, any other charts and tables that I've given you, your reaction sheet. What I mean, that's the summary that you had of your organic reactions, summary of functional groups. Even though I didn't let you use that on the last exam, you're fine for this one, right? I'm working on curating a bunch of those, so hopefully I can put them in one spot and you can just print them out and be done. Things you can't use on the exam. So that's why I said it's like with exceptions to open book. You are not allowed to use your textbook. You're not allowed to use the internet. The biggest thing that the professors are finding out is students are texting or DMing each other. You cannot do that. It's pretty, I've seen through all my classes. It's actually, we had our faculty meeting today in the sciences, is common, and we're cracking down on it hard because the academic integrity is pretty serious. So like I said, I already warned you guys, if I see any evidence of cheating, it immediately goes to the administration. I hope that doesn't happen because it's a pain in the butt for you and it's a pain in the butt for me. But if it happens, we're going to do it. You can't use the slides and any practice problem solutions, so like answer keys and stuff like that. Your own work is fine. If you did it out by hand, great. But anything that I've done out by hand or something like that, you cannot use. And I'm not allowing you to use the old exams either. And so again, this is what I'm saying about make sure you're prepped. Don't just go in there saying, oh, it's open notes and I don't have to study. You're going to have a bad day. All right, so just briefly going through where to start. I know it's already kind of long already. I just want to make sure we're covering our bases. But places to start, definitely going through this study guide. I know some students get overwhelmed because it's like 6 pages long and it's single spaced and the margins are very narrow, but if you look through it, it's actually not bad. I designed it in such a way that I'm not just keeping things generic. It's, certain things, right? I'm letting either define it, which means you should be able to explain it in your own words, or if you recognize it in a multiple choice question. Identifying would be like, can you identify what an ester group looks like if I showed you a molecule, right? And then use would be could you use this concept in an equation or an explanation? And there's other phrases that I use in there too, but they're usually self-explanatory. I also went through, and I know there's 17 chapters, but I highlighted 10 of them that I think are the most critical. So again, chapter 2, if you're going to make triage what I'm studying, choose chapter 2 over chapter 1, right? Not to say that chapter 1 will not appear on the exam. It most definitely will. But it might be in a more minor form, or maybe it's something that, is not super critical to getting a problem done. So just keep that in mind. As you go through, just ask yourself, do I know what matter is, right? If you do, you're done. Do I know what a pure substance is versus a mixture, element versus compound, right? I would recommend triaging things or using like a stoplight type method. So like green, I got it. Look at it once, double check to make sure you're right, be done. You look at other topics like, yeah, I kind of get it, but maybe I don't know how to phrase it back. Maybe I should take a look at it, mark those as yellow and like that, spend some time on that. And then also go through and say, man, like, I don't remember that. Ask yourself, do I think it's going to be super important? Maybe, is it, you got to make your own strategy in terms of studying. But, go through, read it off, ask yourself, okay, do I feel comfortable with it, right? If you scroll through, so anyone who watches this video or even opens this document, I'm guaranteeing you 2 problems. One will be based on chapter 7, specifically this particular picture. We've done this before. If I give you grams of reactants, could you calculate how many grams of products if I give you a balanced chemical reaction, right? So we've made this picture before. I added this in here because I know people get confused with using Avogadro's number. Just so you can read the figure, it's like if I gave you grams of a reactant, you use the molar mass to get moles of reactant. If I ask for the number of particles of reactants, then you use Avogadro's number and you're kind of at a dead end, right? So that's why it's kind of like you can kind of run your finger across, what type of question am I asking type deal. Another one that I've guaranteed is number 9, solutions. You will definitely have a problem that deals with molarity specifically, and it will definitely be involving dilution. So I'm telling you that, be able to do that. That is on the exam. Then you kind of get through, right? And then we get into more recent stuff. Chapter 11, go through this. A lot of this is stuff that we prepped for exam 2. Yeah, exam 2, right? So it's pretty fresh, I hope. But, I list off some things. Can you do this? I let you know, define, draw, name, define, draw, name. And then I list the reactions that they undergo. Like I said, you already have a sheet that I summarized example of reactions. You're allowed to use that. Just remember that when we get into lipids and stuff, we found other reactions. Those aren't on there yet. You might have to add your own. Studying functional groups and then being able to recognize them really quick, right? It sounds dumb, flashcards work. All 3 organic professors that Emmanuel have their students use flashcards because they work. So it's my recommendation. It also works for studying reactions too. So like write out the reactants on the front and so on the other side, put the products. And so you can figure out when I see this type of generic reaction, can I predict the products, right? That's good to know. And again, you go through, these are all the stuff that we've done before. One note I want to mention though is on amines and amides. So if you notice, I'm not having any naming or drawing from names because we didn't really focus on that. Instead, we attacked amines and amides when we talked about proteins. So I want you to be able to identify an amine in a structure. Can you categorize amines, primary, secondary, and tertiary? And there's our reactions. We didn't specifically go over them, but we did touch on them when we talked about proteins. Like when amines are added to water, they act as a base. They abstract a hydrogen from water and form ammonium and leave hydroxide, right? So that's why our proteins have that N terminal that's charged. How do Amino acids turn into polypeptides. Well, the amine of one amino acid reacts with the carboxylic acid of the other, and it forms an amide, right? We've done that before. And that's exactly what we see. Actually, this reaction and that reaction are the same. And then we get into the biochemistry portion, right? Again, I don't think there's any calculations here at all. Everything is mostly IDing. Sorry if you can hear, there's a fire truck outside. IDing structures. Can you define certain what's the role of a hormone in the body? If you can define it, good, check it off, be done, right? What's fluid mosaic, right? Well, that's like the cell wall is constantly moving. It's made out of fat, right? And that's fluid mosaic model. So it's not like a stationary wall, the cell wall. It's constantly moving, right? Certain reactions, you might want to make your own reaction sheet for these, right? It's summarized in table 15.3. I don't think I changed the slides, but on the ones I was looking at, it was slide 20 of the chapter 15 slides, right? And again, go through, and I tried to keep it very defined on what you're being asked. I guarantee you, I will not ask a question that is not found somewhere or touched on some kind of topic in this study guide. So again, this is going to be a good place to start of, do I know this or do I not? To get practice with doing, new practice problems and trying to keep things in one spot instead of having, do I look at the exams? Do I look at old practice problems? Do I go to the book? Do I try doing all these other things? What I tried to do is put everything into one spot, right? And what I found was that Pearson's our publisher. They actually had already a bunch of problems already put into a PowerPoint. So I was able to get them from the company. And what I did is I went through all the slides and curated all the problems to be exactly on what we covered in class. So it looks like a lot, but it's because we covered 17 chapters, right? So I was talking over that, right? Where are they on the website? You go back to the beginning, we're in files, right? Final exam content, all practice problems, all chapters, curated book problems. And this was, you're going to find a bunch of PDFs, PowerPoints. So let me open one of those. See if I can find it. There we go. I'll just choose chapter 2 as an example. Right, the way you want to use these slides, so it's set up as animation, so actually you have the question and the answer on the same slide. If you go to presenter mode, it just states the problem first. And so you can go through and ask yourself, am I comfortable with this or not? Or do I want to try a couple problems? So like in this one, it says state the type of measurement indicated in each of the following. So A is in grams, so it's probably mass. B is in liters, so it's probably volume. C is centimeters, is length. D is milligrams, and that's going to be mass again, right? And so we look at our solution, and it gives you the answer, and sometimes it gives you a little bit of explanation. There's also additional study checks. I haven't double checked with this. I think they line up for the ones in the book, so the answers might be in the book on that. If not, then you can just ignore those and stick with the main problems. And then you can just keep going through. Like maybe you're good with sig fig. Try to do it quick in your head, double check. Maybe you're all set, then move on, right? Be strategic in the problems you try. And so I went through for all 17 chapters, including the biochem ones. So you can try the biochem homework. That's good. They're pretty much in the same vein as the ones that are in the PowerPoint. So just to give you a heads up. And the last thing that I'll say in terms of like studying, what was I going to say? I just had it on the tip of my tongue and I don't remember. So it wasn't important. If I think of it, I will email you all. Right, I was talking about study. Yeah, all right, it's lost. Sorry. But yeah, I think that's a good place to start if you're feeling lost. Those are two good resources. You'll get a lot of practice with theory by going through the study guide, and you're going to get a lot of practice with simple problems. Some with word problem components in those PowerPoint slides. Right. And now I remember what I was going to say. As you probably noticed in exams 1 and 2, I really stuck with how the book phrased things, and I try not to throw curveballs in a nursing class because I know you're not training to become a scientist. So I will do my best to try and word things like exactly the same way that the textbook does and exactly the same way Master and Chem does. So it's in a familiar phrasing. And, maybe, hopefully that gives you a little bit of comfort, I guess, when taking the exam. All right, so I'll be sending more stuff you guys as way as I make it. I think pretty much now you have the majority of things to feel settled for on the final. I think the only thing I'm going to follow up with now is I think I got maybe an answer key or two I got to put up, and then I'll curate all the worksheets, not the worksheets, the like charts and tables I've given you throughout the semester. All right, good luck with the studying, and if you have any questions, email me. I'll get back to you as soon as I can, and hopefully everything goes well, and I'll talk to you all later.